spend on a new jail?
The architect is working backwards from the numbers that were distributed to the council and commissioners in the update of the estimates of the revenue and lit, and is taking that number that was in the illustrative project and working backwards to determine an estimate for the soft costs, the architect's fee and a construction manager's fee, to come up with an actual construction cost, which is what the architect needed to be able to put it out for the RFP for the construction management services. So they're working on that right now. But we need to move some of these things on and
Yeah,
not
but
get
my
behind.
thing is we already spent $500,000 when we got shot down already on all this stuff. I mean, I've got people calling me saying, hey, you're wasting our money, what's going on? I just redirect them to those 7 I said right there. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent a lot of money on a project that has went nowhere.
Just consider, add 120 days at least before we have that easement if we don't give them, if they don't accept our offer. At least 120 days. That's what it will take to get file condemnation.
So we need to show to them that we're in good faith, we've got
Well,
it.
we don't have to show them anything, actually. We just need to be able to say,
This is what we're gonna offer.
if they object to it, and they say, this thing is way out of date, and more time will have passed by the time you have to get into court, they could use that as an objection to us being able to acquire it. So we need to be moving the parts forward that we can, in order not to have it hold us up at a really critical time down the road.
I was asked by a council member if the commissioners have asked the redevelopment committee if they would be willing to pay some of this, I mean, I asked,
Also,
well, the utility.
Part of the
easement,
infrastructure.
because it's part of their area.
We asked if they'd be willing to pay for installation of that, I don't know if we asked them if they'd be willing to pay for more appraisals.
I guess I missed that, because this was.
It seems like that
for the
they-
utility
No, I
easement.
remember talking about it.
Yeah, they were amenable to it, they thought it'd probably be something they'd do, from what I heard.
How much is the appraisal?
I don't have the number, that was from two meetings ago.
It's like what, 5,000?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but they have an appraisal. I understand we need it done, but
Hold the finger to the wind and say, yeah, I think it went for about that much.
I can have them resend it. We would table it till the next meeting.
All right.
Need to move on.
We'll go ahead, we'll do it next thing. What's the next thing here, Ted?
Okay, board property, I sent it.
Just come on your desk.
Closings this afternoon at 1:30. And buyer's paying all the costs. So we're getting a check for whatever the amount of it is. This is the deed. You've authorized it to be signed already. And I think one, maybe got a copy of the deed. So, you just need to sign the deed. And we need a notary.
Each one of us have to sign.
Christie or Tara.
these all say when you bring. Oh, there's one for each one, okay. I was there. This one. Last week.
Well, they just, I just got it.
Yeah, well, they said, they go, what are you here for? I'm like, I'm here to sign the deed, I was supposed to be here, and they go, we're not even ready for that yet. I'm like, oh.
He has to have it.
They said you're moving right up on the list now,
So,
just, 3, 4 months. You're next.
a seat, you can do it right here if you want. You have the seal? Yeah.
Yep, no big deal.
Morning, young lady.
Oh, you sign it clean. Yeah, it's gotta be in the right space.
You didn't sign a wrong one. We'll only sign two, probably need to sign one more.
You only need to sign one.
Oh,
I mean, we can sign a second one if you want.
well, if they, we got two then.
I've got more copies of it than you.
Okay, so,
There's only one place to sign for each of you,
Where says your name?
right above your name.
here's one with two signatures here. And this one,
Okay, those don't have to be at one.
I think so too. Me, you, this is the other one. We'll get it to you.
We'll just have to make sure. I'm getting used to doing this double. Always sign more than one.
Like to start with that one? It's a little bit too here.
And you're going to the closing.
I'm going to the closing. 1:15.
It starts at 1:30, but you go at 1:15. I mean, I don't know.
I'm never early, I'm usually
Whoa,
fashionably
whoa,
late.
Okay, well, make it 1:15.
Wait a minute, you were here 10 minutes early today. Is that why it's raining? Bill showed up 10
Yeah,
minutes
must
early?
be.
It is 1:30,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's out at the Pearson Building?
Isn't that what?
Yeah.
That's right past it, I think.
Yeah, it's on the right side, further south.
There'll be a lot of other papers to sign.
You'll be there in an hour.
They'll already have your name on it. And, they usually do the flyers part of the closing first, and the sellers, I don't know, which one they do first, but you'll wind up with a check. How about that?
That
So
you,
then I just,
that you need to bring to me.
I thought there was something good going to come out of it. In that case, you wanna go, you'll get to keep the check.
Don't even get a cold soda pop out of it.
No. Ted, is there something else we can move ahead with?
Okay, let's go ahead with the,
Carroll County Investigation Center? Is that right, Ted?
One of the actions that Steve took on the 7th, was to authorize the sheriff to make a presentation to the county council for a lease proposal to relocate the criminal investigation of the 2017 double homicide. I think you all have copies of that.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to Phil.
Good morning, gentlemen. Just a little backstory or history, as you obviously are aware. City of Delphi has graciously provided us with a space for a number of years now for our investigation. In that they are looking to move forward with other plans with that space in the city building. Obviously, we've been looking around for a different location. And we all know how difficult that process has been as well, but, thankfully in essence, in a small county, it still happens, word of mouth, conversation occurred, and, we were able to, begin engaging, Mr. Todd Price, who is here with us this morning, in an open office area, that he has in his building at 5810 North 9th Street in West Delphi. And I believe one of you gentlemen, or maybe two of you, have been through that location, taken a look at it. Obviously, myself and the investigators have been through it, and we find it to be quite fitting for what we need. And so I would respectfully request that we engage, the county engage in a lease contract with Mr. Price this morning and move forward with this, because obviously our September 30th deadline is that or quickly approaching on us, so we'd really like to get this moving forward. Also, if you have not heard, the council did allocate $15,000 last Thursday toward this, basically upgrades that we're looking to do with that particular office location, mainly from a security standpoint and allowing us the funding to move forward. So either I or Mr. Price can answer any questions this morning if you have any, but I think it's a, if you will, a win-win for the investigation.
Art, did you put this in your budget for future years?
At this point, there was discussion of a line item actually being implemented for 22 for this purpose, yes.
But this is kind of would be in your control.
Right, correct.
I'm not understanding, so, Sheriff, excuse me, we got, $15,000 to us, but I see costs here of $10,000 and $23,000.
Okay, well, the lease, as I understand it, it's $600 per month for $1,200 for the whole year. And the lease, if I understand it correctly, is for at least initially a 2-year contract. So, go ahead.
Okay, the lease is for an initial term of 2 years, beginning September 13th, terminating in September 13th, 2025, with 2 additional extension options. The initial lease amount comes out to $600 a month in advance. Then the county will have an option to renew the lease for an additional renewal term, for a renewal term of 24 months, another 2 years, commencing 2023 to 2025. I'm sorry, I misspoke first. The rent goes up for that period to $700 a month. And then the extra option is exercised by giving the lessor a notice at least 30 days prior to the expiration of the current term. Then there is another renewal term for an additional 24 months from September 13, 2025 to September 2027 at $800 a month. So there's there's an initial term and 2 optional extension terms, and that's the financial part of the lease. And there's also a $600 security deposit to be paid in advance, and the county is also responsible for any kind of deposits or anything relating to utilities, so forth. Is there any other financial obligation, other than the improvements that the county wants to make? First, they need to be responsible for those improvements.
Nothing that I can think of.
And Mr. Price provided us with a form of lease. I merged it into a form that's used by local governments. I have the lease, and Mr. Price has had an opportunity to look at that. So, it's
So my question still is, I'm looking at $33,000 plus $34,000 here, and we got $15,000 from the council. How do we pay for the other? And, are they approving the lease separate from the?
They
just
basically.
need $15,000 for the rest of the year.
Right. So that's, so
that'll
they
get us
broken.
through till December
December,
31st. And
right.
some of these costs will be coming in after that.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
That's why I was asking him if he put it in his budget for next year.
Yeah.
Well, it's after the fact, but also if you have a lease, then we will be able to encumber that money where it is going to be now, and then, ask for an additional, because you can't do an additional in December. So an additional in January, and then we will continue that way.
Okay. I just wanna make sure that we have money
These
to
guys
do this.
understood.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna thank you, Todd, for stepping up to the plate and offering your services for this. It does kinda leave a bad taste in my mouth, cause we got an area we could've had already done and built by now. I've got a small story to say, and, I got a phone call from Mr. Ryder, upset because we didn't go with his proposal across the street. Then soon after that, he come back and said, hey, we're not gonna fund the courthouse thing, but we had money to do his issue, but we didn't have money to do the courthouse. I got a phone call from the council president from his hospital bed, ripped me a new case. I just hung up on him. So, I mean, all of a sudden we got funding for this, but we didn't have funding for the other. I just think there were some shady deals going on sitting right there. I had to say that, I'm sorry.
I think we have to bear in mind, gentlemen, and all of us as local government officials, obviously this is not for the county, it's for the girls.
I agree 100%. So,
And also that was more money than what this is, so they all.
this is gonna end up being more money than what it would be to
Well-
renovate that down there. 5-year contract at $800, is like $54,000. You know it's gonna take longer than that, plus the renovations, we need to do a building, we
I'm
don't
just
know.
saying at this time,
Yeah, we
that's all
have
they
to do
needed
this.
was 15,000 to get them out of Delta City.
I just feel something down there, just stuck a dagger in your back.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, so we don't need to really renovate, we want to add some protective equipment.
Right.
That's-
That list I obviously provided, that's what 90% of that is.
Facilities, pretty nice.
Yeah.
They're like spacious, I think, what they need.
Well, I'm in favor of it, just the way that it went down, I'm just not happy with
So it's up to us to today approve this, is that what we're doing, or?
That is my request, and
it. If we don't approve it today, then they can't get their system in, what they need to do to move in,
Okay, well, I entertain a motion.
so,
That was fast. I got a motion and a second to approve this list, right? All in favor, please? What?
the lease, the lease, the lease.
I
Right.
think he's getting.
Wait, a minute. So we're approving,
We approve it the
Approving
lease
the lease.
for the 2 years. Then they'll have to go to the council, maybe if they spend that 15,000 or more by the end of the year.
Good to know, so I can make copies,
okay,
so that it's ready to sign.
so Ted, what is your motion for?
Motion to approve the lease.
To approve the lease?
Yep.
Okay. And you seconded the lease. All in favor of the lease, say aye.
All this
We got
other,
that taken care
all
of.
this other ought to go in front of council to spend out of that line item. They just,
So we don't approve this,
I don't
or
think so.
we going to request this from the council?
We just rented the building,
Right.
and the sheriff will have to go to the council for the improvement on.
I don't see any harm if you wanna, okay that, that's gonna give him background to go to the council. Because after the 15,000, he is going to need more. So he's gonna be more than this, right? You might wanna say that Nick McMillan is.
Oh, yes, in regard to the, down, or the deposit, prosecuting attorney McClellan is taking care of that $600. In fact, I know he has, already submitted a claim through the auditor's office for that to be taken care of first part of October here. So,
Is the investigator gonna be moving out there?
I don't know about necessarily moving, but he'll still be involved.
Right.
Yeah.
And when does this lease, did you say when the lease started?
13.
Well, I heard the 13th, but we're signing it, so should we date this the 13th?
Yes. I mean, no, date it today.
Okay,
20.
The term begins.
I was gonna say, I didn't write the date.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
And again, Todd, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Actually, I didn't know it, but I actually met your mom and Paul a while back.
Yeah.
We went for a motorcycle ride, and I'm like, you know my son? I'm like, no.
Don't need a motion for this, but because the lease term could potentially be up to 6 years, in Indiana, you're required to record something to record a short form of the lease, anything over 3 years. So I got that, and it doesn't, you don't have to have a motion for it, it's just the memorandum that's what will go in the record. Mr. Price, would you like to come sit up there and sign these? So I fixed he was 800 and I fixed that. Okay, so I'm reading. That pen, multiple pen, the pen that you can use.
Sign your life away, Todd.
This is already signed?
Sheriff, while they're signing those, I have something I wanna ask you about.
Sure.
And I wanna preface this by saying I'm not meaning to get.
Here's the memorandum of lease. We'll take care of recording if you don't worry about that.
After, I see some of the similarities here, but after
Lincoln and Doc.
I've been in the restaurant business for at least 35 years, and we've run the one in Lafayette for at least 15 years. My wife and I signed hired a company out of California. It was actually run by Purdue,
Take one of those.
to come in and do a complete audit of our business,
These two.
private audit, and look at everything, because while I thought I knew what I was doing, I wasn't sure, you know, and I wanted to make sure that there was another set of eyes looking at everything here and maybe giving me a different perspective of where I've gone wrong, or where I'd overlooked it, or anything like that. And it encompassed everything, from the walk-off match to our taxes, everything we went through. I'm wanting to ask you, are we at a point where we need to hire an outside eye to come in and look over this whole investigation to see if there's something that maybe we've overlooked? And we haven't looked at anything, but
Give a fresh set of eyes.
get a fresh set of eyes to looking at this. You know, of course, what I know about law, I see on TV, you know, so I see these cold cases where they come back and a new person looks at it, and oh, he finds some little shred here that nobody looked at. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I'm asking you, is that something that we as commissioners should pursue, or authorize money for? Everybody's wanting to see this done, you know?
Right.
So,
First of all, Commissioner, I'm not offended by that, and I will add that actually early on with the investigation, when I say early, within a year or maybe even months, as I recall, without providing specifics, I will tell you that we did have outside agencies come on board, and when I say outside, I'm talking about professional, public-funded organizations from other states, state investigators come on board and take an outside-in looking approach. And so we've done that already. And to answer your question, is it time to potentially do that again? That's a good point, yes. I would, personally, I would entertain that idea, but I think that's a discussion we need to have amongst ourselves within our core investigators, rather than, and again, no offense, at this point, I'm going to decline your suggestion of at least the funding aspect of it, because I want to hear what the core investigators feel, and have that meeting with them, and then if we see potentially, again, bringing outside resources into us, that we may need that funding, then I'll be the first back up here again saying, gentlemen, yes, we are gonna move forward, and yes, respectfully, we would ask for funding because of that.
Okay,
So but in essence, that's nothing new. Again, we've at least two other outside agencies that I recall, who brought them on board and said, hey, take a look at this, see what you think. And they've done that, and as I recall, the feedback, at least during that time period, was that you're on course, you're on the right path. But, you know, is it time to answer your question? Is it time again? I would agree that that's a reasonable suggestion.
okay, well, I want you to know that I'm on board with that, and I think my fellow commissioners would wanna do everything we can
Sure.
to move this along. And just as a little aside, when this idea first came up to my managers that I had down at West Lafayette, none of them liked it because they all knew everything already. So,
Yeah. Well,
we had to kind of overrule that, and go ahead and bring in it.
and I've always been the type, Bill, that, even at the stage of my career, I am still open to new ideas and new thoughts, and I'm not set in my ways, if you will. And so, that's why I say, but again, if you could afford me the opportunity, at least have that meeting, with our core investigators and say, hey, you know, how can we potentially regroup here? You know, what do we need to do moving forward to, again, maybe provide this fresh set of eyes? So I'm open to that. So,
We wanna help.
thank you, I appreciate that, thank you. And for what it's worth, real quick, our total count this morning is 45. 38 are, coming back, from, another facility, as I, alluded to. We had our phase 2, if you will, of our plumbing update last week. That was successful in 3 of the 5 lines involved. The 2 remaining are not in that bad of shape. The other thing is, due to the structural integrity of those lines and the coating process or equipment, it's not able to access those lines, but they did run a camera through it, and everything looks fine at this point on those 2 remaining lines. So the other 3 are now coated with that product, and, so we're moving, our inmates back into our jail today, and, becoming operational again. So 45 total, 38 coming back to us, 7 remaining in White County.
How do you move 30?
Several offers of help from some of our excellent deputies.
It just seems like a huge show.
It's a huge caravan this morning, if you will, so.
Yeah, it should just drop school with.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Mr. Bryce, thanks for your offering stuff, it's really appreciated. You saved our behind. Can we jump down to these 2 requests?
Yes.
Or something?
Other commissioners' action, Delphi Preservation Society use of the gazebo. Need a motion? So moved. Second, all in favor say aye. Passed. Judge Troy Hawkins request to use the gazebo on October the 4th.
So moved.
Move second.
This is the same thing, or is it the opposite?
It's the opposite.
Okay,
Got it.
now we are ready to go up to Mayor Anita Worley. We are happy to have you.
Okay, your name, Joe. Tell me your name.
Yes, sir, Joe.
Good morning, my name is Joe Mayfield, I'm the president of the city's redevelopment commission.
I thought I recognized you.
Yeah, you might have. So, you've probably read and heard about that the city of Delphi is going through the legislative process to create a residential TIF within the city. And we're designating 3 allocation units for that residential TIF. And one of those allocation units, our largest one, and if you have the map of that with you, looks like this.
Yeah, it's in the back. It's that big piece of paper.
She may have it, do you have it on the screen? So this allocation unit that we're in the process of designating for the residential TIF is 275 acres. But 75 acres of that allocation area is unincorporated. And so county property on the boundary of the city property. And we would ask the commissioners to allow us to include those two parcels of unincorporated land into the city's allocation unit and residential TIF.
Hey, Joe, where is it on here? What's
So-
the unincorporated part?
So that line,
Right down here?
so the east, so where it says it county, you have the yellow line.
You know where
and
the top
the-
hill is there, right?
So,
This is Spring Prairie.
yes,
Spring
so,
Prairie and that, medical center up there.
Yeah.
All that farmland up in there.
Here's
so essentially it's that line that goes, this eastern edge of this is unincorporated property that's adjacent to the city boundary. And we would like, because of our concept development plan for this area, that acreage that abuts the Hoosier Heartland and the city's boundary is vitally important to that development of this 300 acres. And so that's what we are asking, as per the resolution, is to allow us to include those two parcels in the residential TIF for the city. So we have two previous precedents for that. The first one being when you established the county's redevelopment commission, you asked the city if you could include some of the municipal property into the county's residential TIF, and that was done. And then when the city of Delphi established the first industrial or commercial TIF, we asked you to let us include some of the small parcels on the west side of Delphi that were on the border of the city into the city's TIF. So that's the two precedents for this ask, and we are coming before you today for you to consider this. And then I don't know if Ted is, that you've got to review the resolution.
I didn't know if anybody from the county redevelopment commission had any comment on it, but it's all in order and this is consistent with what communities do.
So we have a wonderful concept development plan for that area, and so that's why it's vitally important for your property to be included into that allocation area.
Okay, gentlemen?
I have, I'll be on. I have this one, I've heard people talking about this, I've heard people say good things, I've heard people say bad things, which is always normal in government. You never hear the thing you always wanna hear. How does this affect the school taxes and all that, and through the grapevine, I was told that we have to get all approvals from the school for this.
You do not, we do.
We do, the city's redevelopment commission is working with the Delphi School Corporation with a memorandum of understanding between the residential kids and the school district about sharing those resources out of the development of the allocation areas. But we were just asking the commissioners to approve us including unincorporated property into the city's allocation area.
What do we lose out of this, Ted? Do we lose anything out of this?
The increase in the value, I mean, TIF is the increase in value from the
Right.
improvement. You don't lose anything from what you got right now. It's maintained, so it's a no lose. And it just allows tax to be collected on the increment to fund the infrastructure and other things that need to be done to develop it. So it's a good thing.
That portion of it goes to the city of Delphi's too.
To the tip, but not to the city of Delphi. I mean, it's,
Redevelopment.
it goes to redevelopment.
Only after your baseline taxes, you always
Right.
get.
Correct.
So you always get that until development occurs, and then we capture the increase in property taxes for the development that the city does, and that goes into the redevelopment.
Well, and that's the way that it was done out here at Packers, through a TIF thing, and that's what allowed the county, and this started, of course, before I was here, but allowed them to have the money to do the, sewers and water lines, and all that stuff out there.
And there are some city parcels that are included in that,
In the
IPC TIF. And, I think that was the first precedent for this. The city of Delphi entered into an interlocal agreement with the county to allow some city parcels to be included in that, commercial TIF area for the Indiana Packers Corporation. And, subsequently, as Joe stated, back in 2011, 12, as the city of Delphi was establishing a residential, a commercial TIF, you allowed us to include, properties that are on the west side of US 421, so Brosman's, Man, Chevrolet, et cetera, because of the nexus, the closeness of proximity to the city. So they're really considered city businesses, and, we support them in that way. And so, that interlocal agreement was signed at that time. So we're asking now for another interlocal agreement to allow us to include the two county parcels, from, the former Fallon property. This is probably how you would know it, Bill and Lauren and Steve, to have, those two parcels that are in the county included as part of this residential TIF.
That is a beautiful piece of work out there.
It is,
Where
we
did
just,
where did the name Burn Break come from?
That's interesting. The Ballin family, back in the 1850s, raised Burnbrae cattle. It's similar to an Angus breed. They were internationally known for it. And so the property at that time, the farm, was called Burnbrae Farms. So, yeah, it's not a name that is anywhere other than the archives, but it's kind of, has a neat sound to it and is part of the historic record for the
I
property.
think it has a nice sound to it.
the current property is held in a trust, the Bowen family trust, it's called Van Brunt. And so that, and as you probably heard, it's potentially going up for sale this year. So that's why we're working so diligently with development ideas, because that is where the city can go for the next decade.
What kind of housing are you wanting to put in there, or?
So it would be mixed. It's a combination of, let me know the little
I can
places.
see it. Looks like you got maybe some
Yeah,
apartments.
so the yellow would be low density, so executive style housing. And this also, the low density housing would butt up against existing neighborhoods, which is one of the reasons for placing that, in that location. There's also medium density, which would be single family homes that you see in the red area. And then a higher density, which could be apartments or townhouses, in the area, over by the Hoosier Heartland. The blue that you see would be basically, retention ponds to handle the runoff that will occur as a result of more pavement, more roads, more rooftops. And then we also are planning for a healthcare complex, and talking right now with 3 different healthcare providers to get an urgent care facility in Delphi. And that would be located here off of 200. It would also include, medical office complex for doctors, dentists, chiropractors, audiologists, whoever it might be, ophthalmologists. And then a small commercial node, which could have a hotel right here off of Washington Street, and a little bit of commercial property for restaurants and, the kinds of things that you're having, more residents live there, would provide, the space for them to have, the retail close by. The school corporation is located right over here, so the connectivity with the schools is exciting. And also it's very close to the downtown, so.
What about the residents that's already there on the Riley Road?
Yes, and we have talked to a number of them, and frankly, they were concerned until they started looking at the plan. And what this does is really, close to where those existing neighborhoods are. It's low-density housing, so very complementary with what is there now in terms of the neighborhoods. And instead of seeing, maybe a negative impact from growth, they see this as a positive impact for those that we've talked to.
And it connects the existing neighborhoods with the quality of place amenities that we're adding, plus it hooks them into the trail that will be going through the development area. So it's actually,
The dotted line that you see, the white dotted line, and the green would be, basically trails and, park areas. So again, that, we already have about 14 miles of historic trails in Delphi, and this would, kind of add to that, and also give, the people who live in this area, connection to retail, to the downtown, to the schools, biking, hiking, type of trail. So, pretty exciting, potential development.
It's also they probably would provide them another way out.
Absolutely.
and that's one of the things you
That's-
think about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause there's only one way in, one way out.
One way out,
On Riley
out of
Road,
Prince
yeah.
William.
So there would be, multiple ways now for them to get out of that area. So,
It looks beautiful to me. Okay, so we need to endorse this, resolution.
You want to do it by reading only, then,
No, it's not an ordinance.
oh, it's not ordinance. I get those confused.
Motion to adopt, or, we need a resolution number.
2021-04.
Yeah, entertain a motion, gentlemen.
Rules resolution 21-04, sign jurisdiction over county, your county, sign jurisdiction over this area, so we don't fire development.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second, and I'm not gonna repeat all the motions, but we have a motion and a second, and I would call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. We appreciate all your work. This is good for Carroll County.
Right on the second page.
Second page.